welcome to News 8 at noon, a special edition. I'm Jack Kane reporting live from the Capitol in Charleston, where thousands of West Virginians have gathered to hear President Clinton deliver his first address after the House and Senate passed his budget deficit reduction plan just on Thursday and Friday of last week. As I said, thousands of West Virginians have gathered here. They've been pouring into the Capitol complex since early this morning, and as I look around the crowd this afternoon, most of them happy faces, jubilant to see the commander-in-chief, but there are a few posters that are a little bit on the negative side. I'm trying to see some of them back here. Single-payer saves. There was another one that said Clinton and Gore gone in 4. So a few protesters did get through the crowd, and we'll have to see how vocal they are, get through the gates, I should say, and see how vocal they are later on during the president's speech. The president should be speaking to the crowd here about 12:50 this afternoon. Everything is going on schedule. I just talked with the White House press spokesman, Jess Sarmiento. She says the president's plane touched down at Yeager Airport about 11:15 this morning, which was right on schedule, and I think we have a shot of the president arriving at Yeager Airport. We were trying to bring this to you live earlier this morning when the president landed. Unfortunately, Air Force One stopped right in front of our line-of-sight microwave, so Steve Levine was unable to bring you that live report from the airport, but we do have the pictures for you now. The president is on the ground. He's been meeting with party officials from around West Virginia, and of course on the plane with him the state congressional delegation, Senator Jay Rockefeller and Senator Robert Byrd. I believe Senator Byrd is with the entourage. I'm not sure. Congressman Bob Wise also will be here and speaking later on this afternoon, as will Charleston Mayor Ken Hall. Right behind me is the podium. As you can see, that podium flown in yesterday along with the president's limousine, which he will be riding in as he comes from the airport down here to the Capitol complex. We'll be talking with Steve Levine about what went on up at the airport in just a few minutes. Right now there's a band playing country music in the background, as it has been all morning long. We'll have later on Hail to the Chief, by the way, will be played by the Ripley High School Band. And Tommy, if you can kind of pan over to my left here, you can see behind the country music band, that's the Ripley High School Band over there. And they were just notified on Friday, their band director, that they would be playing for the president today. They were up here at the Capitol complex most of the day yesterday rehearsing Hail to the Chief, probably a song that they've never played before. And they will be playing for the president when he comes out of the Capitol building and comes down to the podium, in just about 40 minutes from now or 45 minutes from now. Now, we'll get back to talk with Steve Levine about what went on up at the airport this morning after we take this break. More live coverage of the president's visit to Charleston coming up in just a moment. Steve was up at the airport this morning when the president arrived. Steve, what was the scene up there?
Well, the scene was a bit frantic for us at News 8 here, as you said, Jack. We had a couple of problems. The president's plane came right in front of our shot for our live shot. Unfortunately, we weren't able to bring it to you. We do have videotape of his arriving. Believe it or not, the president arrived right on schedule, 11:15. He was accompanied by Senator Jay Rockefeller, his wife, and, of course, Congressman Bob Wise, Congressman Nick Rahal, along with the governor and the First Lady, and all the dignitaries here, Secretary of State Ken Heckler and Treasurer Larry Bailey. They were all here, as well as the mayor of Charleston, Ken Hall. They welcomed the president as he arrived in Charleston about 11:15, and there were about 200 or so people there from the Air National Guard, as well as family and friends who came to greet the president as he stepped off the plane. He shook their hands, he said hello. He then got into a special presidential limousine and went down to the Armory, where he's there right now. He's having lunch and he's going over his speech. He'll be there till about 12:30 or so, and then he will come down here to the Capitol, where he will give his speech about 10 to 1. That speech would last about 25 minutes or so, and in it he is going to discuss his new economic package, which passed both the Senate and the House by very narrow margins. In fact, it was the vice president who had to do the tie-breaking vote to get his economics package passed. He's expected to discuss it here for about 25 minutes. Then about 1:15, 1:30 or so, he's going to go back to Yeager Airport and head on to Washington, where he'll be there for a little bit, and then he's going over to Colorado, where he's going to be spending some time, as well as Arkansas, for a vacation, a well-needed vacation after a couple of weeks working on his economics package. So it's going to be a busy couple of hours for the president while he's here.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. A lot of happy faces in the crowd right behind Steve. As I said earlier, there also are some signs of protest, and we'll take a look around the crowd here in just a couple of minutes. It's a beautiful day, too. The the Democratic organization, or the White House, if you'd like to look at it that way, couldn't have picked a more perfect day to visit West Virginia. And, of course, as we heard last week, the two main reasons that the president decided to make this first appearance after the big vote in Congress were the proximity of Charleston to Washington and the fact that the entire West Virginia congressional delegation has been behind the president throughout this battle to get his budget bill approved. Now, we'll be back with more live coverage of President Clinton's visit to Charleston right after this. Edition of News 8 at noon continues now live from the state capitol in Charleston. I'm Jack Kane along with Steve Levine, and we are awaiting the arrival of President Clinton, who will be speaking to the crowd here at the Capitol about 12:50 this afternoon. Our Steve Levine is down in the crowd right now, and he's going to talk with some of the folks who have been gathered here for quite some time now. Steve?
That's right, Jack. People have been gathering here about 8 o'clock this morning waiting to get in. They're expecting 5,000 people here. Now, there are a couple hundred dignitaries up on the steps of the Capitol, state senators, former politicians, a lot of community leaders are here. There are also some people from all over the valley, and one of those people here is George Finney, who's from Dunbar, and you've been waiting quite a long time. You got yourself a pretty good seat, huh?
I got a good seat, but I wanted to sit down, though, see? When you get a ticket, you think you should be sitting down, but I didn't make it.
But you get to see the president. What do you think of that?
It's great to be here. I've never seen a president in person in my life.
Now, you probably won't be able to talk to him, but if you did, what would you say to the president?
Well, that's a hard question to say. All I got to say to him
Chris is up there.
I hope he does a good job in his 4 years there. I wish him the best.
He's got these glasses on.
Some people think he's here for one term. You never know. Time will tell if he's here for one term. But I'm glad to see him in West Virginia, one of the finest states in the world. And I never thought I'd ever see the president here in his term, because they got our state loads class so low that you wonder if a president would ever come here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Finney, for joining us. Now, this is the first president that George Finney has seen, but I'm going to speak with somebody now. Eunice Price from Glasgow, you've seen 6 presidents, you said?
This will be my 6th.
Tell us about the presidents. Where did you see him? Who was the first one you saw? Were you here when President Kennedy was here? We should tell everybody that President Kennedy was here 30 years ago, spoke on the Capitol steps. What was it like then when President Kennedy was here?
Wonderful. It really was. I just had surgery, and my husband was going in for surgery, and that's when I adopted my little daughter 30 years ago.
So you saw President Kennedy right here. Was it
I remember him well.
What kind of feeling was it then?
It was wonderful. Just something you couldn't express.
West Virginia had a real connection with President Kennedy.
Kennedy, yes.
What are the other presidents that you've seen?
The first one was President
Reagan?
Yes, President Reagan, Truman, and the one before Truman, I'm speechless. Roosevelt.
President, where did you see? Here in West Virginia?
Reagan, I saw Reagan. Uh-huh.
Who was your favorite? Who was the one you liked the most?
I liked them all.
Any one of those presidents that surprised you at all?
No. Well, pleased with them.
Were they all nice, or was there one that...
I kept up with politics. That's why I watch the news.
Any fun stories that you remember when you saw those presidents? President Roosevelt, what was he like?
Well, at the Elkin Sports Festival, it was wonderful because they could go out and mix with people who are different now. You know, be able to mix with the...
You said you saw President Truman. What was he like?
He was wonderful, and I've been to his place.
Oh, yeah? You've been in Missouri?
Yes, and I've been to Carter, been to Roosevelt, been to all of them.
Well, great. We hope you have a good time.
Every state there is in the Union.
Well, you have...
So in Canada, too. Did all through Canada.
Well, we'd love to come over and see the slides that you have. Boy, that's quite a travelogue. Thanks for joining us.
Every state we have.
Okay.
Mexico and Canada.
That's great. Have a good time today. Enjoy President Clinton's speech. Well, Jack, as you can see, there's all kinds of folks here. People who've seen lots of presidents, some who haven't seen any presidents, but when everybody leaves today, they'll have at least seen one president, President Clinton, who will be here about 1:45. As I said, there's going to be about 5,000 people here. They've been taking trolleys all over the city, free shuttle buses. We should point out that the shuttles are still available. There are 5 all across the city. You can pick them up at Capitol High or Capitol Hill at Wapau Park. at the Raleigh Walk Place and University of Charleston. So if people want to come on by, I walked up a couple of minutes ago. There's still plenty of room and plenty of space for people to come and see the president.
All right, thank you, Steve. That lady had a lot of wonderful memories, I'm sure, but you kind of put her on the spot there. I don't think she could really remember meeting President Roosevelt that well. Anyhow, we have, as I said, a beautiful day here at the Capitol and in Charleston, and I will check the forecast for you in just a minute. First, this break, News 8 special edition of News 8 at noon. The visit of President Clinton to Charleston continues right after this. Continuing now, I'm Jack Kane reporting live at the Capitol. Steve Levine along with us, too, down in the crowd. We'll talk with Steve in just a couple of minutes. The president will be speaking right here on the spot where John F. Kennedy spoke 30 years ago to the citizens of West Virginia. The last president to visit West Virginia was Democrat Jimmy Carter, and that's been quite a while ago, too. The last president to visit Charleston, I should say. The last president to visit West Virginia, of course, was George Bush just a couple of years ago when he presented the Teacher of the Year Award in West Virginia. And Ronald Reagan was in Parkersburg, too, as you'll recall, during his final campaign. Now, round of applause for some reason or another here. I don't know what's going on behind me, but all of the dignitaries, the congressional delegation, the president, and the mayor will all be coming down the steps here at the Capitol. Now, you can see all those folks up there right now are all members of the House of Delegates and Senate, as I understand it, and their families, and the state Supreme Court, and so on and so forth, and other members of the Democratic Party here in West Virginia. They all have the seats right behind the president on the Capitol steps. And as we mentioned earlier, too, the Ripley High School Band is here, and they will be playing Hail to the Chief when President Clinton does emerge from the Capitol Rotunda. And as we mentioned earlier, you couldn't have picked a more beautiful day for the president's visit to West Virginia. We've had a very pleasant morning, kind of overcast through most of the morning, but the sun coming out just before the noon hour. In fact, just about the time the president's plane touched down at Yeager Airport. The forecast for this afternoon is for mostly sunny skies and rather warm, typical August weather, although not as humid as you would expect for August. We expect a high near 82 this afternoon under mostly sunny skies. For tonight, then, it'll be mostly clear, not really cool, 62 for the overnight low. And then for tomorrow, it'll be partly cloudy and warm once again with a high in the low to mid-80s. On Wednesday, we have a chance of showers and thunderstorms for the first time this week. And then things near the end of the week will get warmer, but we'll have partly cloudy skies. We'll be up near 89 degrees on Thursday and then around 91 on Friday as things get more August-like. And there you see the shot of the state capitol again. Beautiful sunny skies, the sunshine bathing the steps of the Capitol. And now the presidential seal, as you'll notice, has been placed on the podium. The podium, as I said, came in on a special Air Force cargo plane yesterday, a little bit larger than the C-130s you see flying around the Charleston area. Flew in yesterday afternoon, bringing with it not only the podium and lots of sound equipment and stuff like that, but also the limousine that the president will be riding in, the bulletproof limousine that you see on all of the presidential personal appearances. That all arrived yesterday. But sometime within the last few minutes, they put that presidential seal on the podium, and that means the president is near. As Steve mentioned, he is up at the airport, or has been at the airport, for the last hour or so, meeting with dignitaries and the state congressional delegation, and should be arriving here at the Capitol complex within the next few minutes. And before the president's speech, we should be hearing a brief welcoming speech from Charleston Mayor Ken Hall. And then Congressman Bob Wise and Senator Jay Rockefeller will be welcoming the president to Charleston for the speech this afternoon. And we will have more live coverage of more of our special edition of News 8 at noon, live from the state capitol right after this. The cheer you hear is for all of the local dignitaries who are coming in now. Members of the House and Senate. I erroneously said they were already up on the platform, but they are coming up the steps right now, some of them with their spouses or other family members, also all of the state officials, and State Democratic Party Chairman Chuck Smith right there now coming up the steps.
I'm sure he's pretty scared.
Attorney General Darrell McGraw. Steve Levine is joining me here on the podium. We're watching, Steve, some of the state dignitaries file onto the platform.
Yes, Jack, these are all the dignitaries who greeted the president when he arrived at the airport about 11:15. We have Attorney General Darrell McGraw's there. As you said, Chuck Smith, the head of the Democratic Party here in West Virginia. The governor and First Lady were also there, as well as Congressman Nick Rahal. Up on the stand, we see Chuck Chambers, the House Speaker, as well as Kanawha County Commissioner Duke Bloom. I saw former Attorney General Mario Palumbo's all along on the group on the Capitol steps. There's say 200 or 300 people up there on the Capitol steps right now waiting for the president, who should be arriving about 1:45, 10 to 1 when he begins his speech. It's going to last about 25 minutes.
Now, you say most of these folks were at the airport this morning.
That's right. All these folks that are now getting onto the podium by the Capitol steps were there at Yeager Airport about 11:15 when the president touched down. He arrived right on time, which is a little bit unusual for the president, who has a tendency to run 10 to 15 minutes late whenever he makes an appearance. But they were all there ready for him when he touched down. Also on hand were about 200 and say 300 people from the Air National Guard and their families. They shook hands with the president. They greeted the president. They said hello to the president. He did take time out. He walked away from the entourage and went right to the folks and started greeting and shaking hands for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then he got into his plane and he got off the plane, and then he got into his special limousine car, which he travels everywhere. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but they brought the car yesterday in a big plane with lots of staff and lots of equipment, a lot of people. They brought that car to the airport. It was there. It has got the special bulletproof glass, and right now he's having lunch at the airport, actually at the Armory. He's going over his speech, probably making a few phone calls to Washington on that special hotline phone, and he should be here in a few minutes.
Now, the plane that the president came in on, and I guess the senators...
Right, Senator Rockefeller was on that plane, as well as Congressman Bob Wise. Congressman Nick Joe Rahal was here. I believe he was in West Virginia this weekend. He had some appearances to make in Huntington. But they got off the plane, as well as Mrs. Rockefeller was there. The Rockefeller children joined them here in Charleston, two of them, and they then sped off after the president left. The president went on by himself. He did not have lunch with the governor or those folks. He's having his own private lunch, catching stuff on some information, getting the latest spin on what's happening in Washington, and probably going over his speech.
Now, as I understand it, this is not the real Air Force One that landed here.
No, the real Air Force One is a little bit too big for Charleston, so they brought a smaller version.
I guess
Air Force One Junior.
Any plane that the president is on is called Air Force One.
Whatever he's on, if he's on a tricycle, if he's on, a hang glider, it's Air Force One. It's got that official seal. And I don't know if you can see it, but that is the official presidential podium that they brought from Washington yesterday with the cars.
Yeah, I was just mentioning when we started the broadcast, the seal wasn't on the podium, so somebody has come out in the meantime. And
right, they probably brought it with them. It travels with the president in a special briefcase. And so they had it with them, and they brought it, and they probably stuck it on there. But that is the official podium for all the press conferences and things that he does in Washington.
All right. Now, will the president be coming out of the Capitol Rotunda? That's what I understood. Or will he be coming through the crowd?
No, I believe that he's going to be coming in through the Capitol Rotunda, and he'll be giving his speech, which is going to be about 25 minutes. He's going to talk about the economics package that everybody knows was passed last week, very narrowly, just within a few votes with the House, and then the Vice President, of course, had to break the tie to get it passed on Friday night. So with the slimmest of slim majorities, the economic package is on its way.
I was mentioning earlier, Steve, that for the most part, this is a very happy crowd, very jubilant crowd, but I did notice a few protest signs in the back there. Clinton and Gore, gone after 4, and a couple more like that.
That's right. It appears like they're protesting the health care position. As we know, the First Lady, Hillary Clinton, is in charge of the health care program, and they're working on it for quite some time. It was supposed to be released in April, but they've had some delays in it, and hopefully they'll have that package out by the end of the year.
Well, as you can see, the folks right now acting as if they're at a country music concert, because that's what it is.
It's more like Jamboree USA, but we know that the president is a huge country fan coming from Arkansas. He enjoys the music, tap dancing, and I'm sure he'll have a good time when he gets here. Now, on Friday, when it was announced that he was coming, we asked if maybe there would be some good news for West Virginia in the president's speech, so we're going to have to listen very closely. Perhaps there'll be a few dollars coming West Virginia's way. We don't know, but this economics package is targeted for states like West Virginia who are having a tough time with unemployment.
That's right. Steve, thanks. Stand by. We'll be back with more here. We're going to take a break. We'll continue our special edition of News 8 at noon, live from the state capitol, as the president visits Charleston right after this.
speech at the Capitol.
Well, everyone
about 20
seems,
minutes from now.
everyone seems to be in place here. All the folks that met him at the airport are now on the Capitol steps. The crowd is waiting a little bit restlessly, and the speech should be about 12:50 this afternoon. Earlier, right preceding the president's speech, the mayor will talk, and also Congressman Bob Wise.
The governor and the senator, of course, they'll probably make a few statements before he comes out and does his big speech, talks about his economic plans, and we'll find out what he has to say in a few minutes.
All right, we'll be coming back here live in just a few minutes. WCHS TV8 News 8's coverage of the president's visit to Charleston will continue shortly. Motorcade nears the Capitol. Our tower cam, of course, on a tower right next to our station on Piedmont Road. The camera pointing in the direction of Greenbrier Street. Of course, the president's motorcade coming from Yeager Airport down Greenbrier Street to the Capitol complex. Now, I'm not really sure what side of the Capitol complex the motorcade will enter. Probably the side facing the river, and then the president will come through the Capitol Rotunda and out the north doors of the Capitol, where the crowd is waiting here and has been patiently, most of them, for the past several hours. Steve Levine is with me right now, and Steve was at the airport, of course, when the president came in this morning, right on time.
Right, he was right on time at 11:15. The president arrived at 11:15. He was accompanied by Senator Jay Rockefeller and Congressman Bob Wise, Congressman Nick Rahall, the governor and first lady, and, of course, the Secretary of State, the Treasurer, the Attorney General. They all greeted the president when he arrived on a smaller version of Air Force One. The president shook hands for a few minutes. He met with some Air National Guard people. Then he took off on his own for some private time, made some phone calls, checked in, make sure that the country was okay with him out not being in the Oval Office.
And I guess everything's all right.
Everything's okay as far as we know, because he's on his way. He had lunch. He went over his speech. He should be here in the next 5-10 minutes or so, and then he's going to give his speech, which is expected to last about 25 minutes. Then he gets right back in the car and goes home again.
Well, that's right. Well, we just saw the motorcade pass by our tower cam. Here comes Governor Caperton and First Lady Rachel Warby onto the platform right now. Mayor Kent Hall back up to the podium again. Congressman Nick Joe Rahall, Congressman Bob Wise. They're all waving to the crowds right now who have gathered here at the Capitol complex, bathed in summer sunshine, may I add. More members of the Washington Press Corps coming out one of the side doors of the Capitol. Now, there was a slight glitch in things a couple of minutes ago. The feed that all of the electronic media is getting from the podium was disrupted, so everyone had to scramble a bit here.
Yeah, and it looks as though the president is on his way. We see the National Press Corps coming out of the Capitol right now. They get into place. They're always the signal that something's going to happen, because they get off the plane, they run, they scramble, they get into position, they throw us out of the way. And we know that the president's on his way.
That means this platform's going to start shaking shortly.
That's right, too. It's not an earthquake. It's nothing major. It's just that the National Press Corps is here.
And now Congressman Bob Wise is about to greet the crowd.
Are we ready for the president to welcome the president to West Virginia? Let's see those signs. Let's see those flags. Are we ready for a West Virginia welcome? And thank you, Ripley High School, for warming this crowd up. Ladies and gentlemen, West Virginians all, Mr. President, 30 years ago, John Fitzgerald Kennedy stood on this site in West Virginia. And President Kennedy brought a message that said there is a new era in our country and for our state. And President Kennedy then challenged us to rise to the occasion, to recognize a changing world, to confront the challenges facing us, and finally to get something done to move our economy and our country forward. He issued that challenge here, and President Clinton comes today to issue and to announce a new era has begun for America and for West Virginia. And the problems are great, but we are strong. The problems are reducing the deficit and balancing the budget over time. The problems are in the challenges creating growth and jobs. The challenges providing opportunity. so that my children and your children and all of our children can have the kind of jobs and opportunity we want in this state and in this country. That is what the challenge the President brings to us today is. And he will find, will he not find, fellow West Virginians, a state ready to meet that challenge? We are ready for change. A state where our manufacturing and mining, we face constant challenges, but we work to bring new jobs, not only in those industries, but in high technology and in technology-based and in services, and in education, improving our educational system so that West Virginia provides and this country provides the best education in the world, and in building our infrastructure for jobs, the roads, the bridges, the airports, the telecommunication highways, and finally the challenge that we must all embrace, making sure that in our country there is affordable access to health care for every citizen. And yes, just in the last few weeks, the Congress has faced a great challenge, and there were legitimate concerns expressed by many, and some are in this audience today. But I think it's important to note that over time, as the facts of this become known, this budget package, a 5-year deficit reduction, economic growth budget package, and as the details become known, that there is at least $1's worth of cuts for every $1 of tax increases, and that for those under $180,000 a year, there is no increase in your working income tax. That needs to be known. It needs to be known that for 100,000 working West Virginia families, there will not be a tax increase, but because they are working and they are raising children, they will get a tax cut to reward work and to encourage them to be able to continue work. And finally, the creation of a deficit reduction account that says that every penny that is produced will go towards reducing the deficit, and the President signed that. And there's more, because the House has passed the President's initiative on a bipartisan basis for the National Service Trust Act, which will mean that hundreds of West Virginians will be able to work in their community for 2 years and still earn money to go to college, providing service to their communities and providing service to their futures. That, too, is part of the dream. And finally, let me say, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to say, and we say to our President, don't stop here. This is the first step, but we must now go to a growth package that produces jobs. We must go to that education package that guarantees educational opportunity for all, and we must guarantee to all of our citizens that birthright of affordable access to health care for everyone. This is just the first step, not the final step, and let the word go forth from West Virginia. We will make those steps, and we want to improve and we want to grow and come to West Virginia to see what can be done. We love our children, we love our country, and we want to build a stronger America. That is what the message is today. And so I want to introduce another builder who has also worked with the President very closely, someone no stranger to West Virginia, my colleague, your colleague, in the southern part of our state, the congressman who once has been so active in coal mining issues, but now has taken on a broader committee role and chairs the Surface Transportation Committee for the entire Congress.
All right, Congressman Bob Wise now introducing his fellow congressman, Democrat Nick Joe Rahal. And after Congressman Rahal speaks for a brief couple of moments, the governor will introduce President Clinton, who is here at the Capitol and ready to come on out. We'll listen to some of the remarks from Congressman Rahal.
And my fellow West Virginians, in welcoming to the Mountain State today, the President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton. You have heard my colleague and dear friend Bob Wise, and on his behalf and on behalf of Alan Mollahan as well, we have been working as a team in our nation's capital. We have been working for change. And change, my fellow West Virginians, does involve sacrifice. It involves work. But most importantly, change involves a chance. And change deserves a chance. That is what we have now as we welcome the President of the United States to West Virginia today. We have a budget in place that that is fairness, returns total fairness to our tax system and to the American economy. It is a change that is going to mean for West Virginians more jobs. It is a change that for West Virginia working families is going to mean a tax income break. And it is a change that for West Virginians is going to mean a brighter future in which our unions and our management will work together, in which our senior citizens and our educators and our veterans will see their benefits fair and not as proportionally reduced as has been the case over the last 12 years. So this package, this administration, my friends, means jobs for our future. And it means that the gremlins of gridlock, those who have fought this every step of the way, those who have cowered behind the mirrors and the smoke screens of the past, will no longer have their way in our nation's capital. So I say to you that change does mean some difficult choices. You've seen it here in our home state of West Virginia. Under the very capable leadership of our governor, Gaston Caperton, we have been able to make change happen here in this very Capitol building. And that change means that our children and our grandchildren will not face the towering deficits that we have, that they will face a fair system of government in which government will respond in a more effective and more efficient manner to the concerns of our people. So I join, and I know that all of us today will give the President of the United States, when he arrives here, the most thunderous welcome that anybody has ever received in the history of our great state of West Virginia. Thank you. God bless each other.
Congressman Nick Rahal making his remarks here before the president arrives at the podium. And now I believe we're going to hear from Congressman Wise again, who will be introducing Governor Caperton.
Our state has also been challenged, as has the nation. And we have faced those challenges in education and work and job growth and in health care. And in every time we have had to face those, we have been led by the governor of our state, the governor who has plotted a course in education, whether it's computers in school, whether it's building, the new facilities that we all need, whether it's providing quality education at every opportunity. And in roads, I'm driving the roads that I haven't seen paved in a long time, and we're building new roads in this state with the help of Senator Robert C. Byrd and Senator John D. Rockefeller, the congressional delegation, and a governor that takes those dollars and puts those to work. That's what's important, to have that change. And the change that comes about in health care, too, to commit ourselves that every West Virginian, as well as every American, will have affordable access to health care. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you someone who's been fighting for that change with Bill Clinton, our governor, Gaston Caperton. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Doesn't this Capitol look beautiful today? I'd like to give a special thanks to the hundreds of people who in just 2 days worked so hard to make this celebration possible. Let's give them a big hand. This is truly a great day for West Virginia. It was just a year ago that President Clinton left in victory from the Democratic National Convention and started his famous bus tour with a special stop in Weirton, West Virginia. So it is appropriate that of all the places in the nation our president could choose to celebrate this historic economic victory, he chose West Virginia. West Virginia today sees new hope in this victory for our economy, thanks to President Clinton's 5-year plan, and thanks to our congressional delegation who stood strong with the president. West Virginia always
shared the president's vision that it is a time for change in America. For too long, we have ignored future generations. For too long, we have lived only for today. Through his bold leadership, President Clinton's challenged the spirit of American people to achieve long-term economic strength. He challenged us not only to act, but to dream. Not only to plan, but to believe. He challenged us not only to hope for a brighter future, but to sacrifice for it. West Virginians are ready to meet the challenges the president has given us. There is still much to be done and more tough decisions ahead for our nation and for West Virginia. This economic growth plan is a great beginning, a solid first step on our road to recovery. West Virginians know the importance of taking those first tough steps. We have learned that when we work together with a common vision, we become stronger and our dreams become a reality. Mr. President, West Virginia stands before you and the rest of the nation, proud of the progress we celebrate today and inspired by its possibilities. Mr. President, just as you began your bus trip through West Virginia on your road to victory, so too do we hope this trip back to our great state signals an even more important victory for West Virginia and the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America, accompanied by Senator J. Rockefeller.
And there you see President Clinton coming down the steps of the Capitol now, accompanied by former Governor Senator J. Rockefeller, shaking hands with the crowd. Most of those folks, family members of dignitaries and Democratic Party members here in the state of West Virginia. The President slowly making his way down the steps. The President, as you know, is a tall man, but next to Senator J. Rockefeller, he appeared smaller than I expected as he came out of the Capitol Rotunda. Still shaking hands with well-wishers as he makes his way to the podium. Nearing the bottom of the steps right now. Shaking hands with Congressman Wise, saluting the crowd. Waving to the rest of the crowd behind the podium, who will be looking at the president's back for the rest of the afternoon. And now West Virginia Senator Jay Rockefeller will make the official introduction for President Clinton. After one more round of applause.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce to you Jennifer Holliday, who is with us today, who is going to sing our national anthem. You got your mic.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous night o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Governor Caperton, I thank you, sir, for your introduction, and I thank you most particularly for your courageous leadership of the greatest state in America, West Virginia. Congressman Wise, Congressman Rahal, proud to be with you anytime. You work every day in every way to help West Virginia. And I also, if I can find them, want to introduce my wife Sharon and my daughter Valerie and our son Justice. My fellow West Virginians, I've got to say it's been a long time since we've had the honor of welcoming a sitting president to the state of West Virginia.
And today we have even more reason to celebrate as we welcome President Clinton, because last week he won one of the most hard-fought, stirring battles for America in our recent history. His victory was really ours too, you know, because it was a victory over gridlock. It was a victory over the status quo, the way they've been doing things in Washington, what President Clinton came to change, and he's doing it. I personally think it's right that President Clinton should come here to West Virginia. You see, in West Virginia, you can still find that fine, good, old-fashioned, hard-working American way of life. We are, like those Razorbacks in Arkansas, the backbone of this country. The kind of Americans that understand that this country is best when it is compassionate, generous, and just. The kind of Americans who never lost faith, even as those principles seem to be cast to the side in recent history. And after so many years without a presidential visit here, many might be asking themselves, well, why is Bill Clinton visiting West Virginia? Mr. President, those of us from West Virginia, to us the answer is very clear. In a nation that has weathered a stagnant economy, this state has suffered as much or more than any other of all the 50. And therefore, America's recovery begins with West Virginia's recovery. Mr. President, your being here today only serves to reinforce, in our eyes, your commitment to the American people and to our economic and military security, to a vision that in America we take care of one another, and we have responsibilities to our children and to our grandchildren and to our neighbors. You watch West Virginia in a flood. Times of flood, people reach out, take care of each other. Open up a National Guard armory, nobody shows up. We take each other in. We care for each other. We feel that we deserve a government that's accountable to us, and we know that you're bringing it to us. Throughout the 1980s, we in West Virginia refused to buy into the notion that our own prosperity had to come at the expense of others. We have understood that America really is only as strong as its families and its communities. West Virginia is the tradition, Mr. President, of community, not of SNL ripoff artists. West Virginia is the tradition of honest, hard-working factory workers, miners, steel workers, good people, no speculators, no leverage buyout kings. It's been a long, long time since somebody in the White House, in our view, was looking out for us. But Bill Clinton has rewarded our faith. The budget that we passed in Congress, just recently will help turn the tide all across America and help undo the myth that we could borrow our way into riches. It offers encouraging news for those West Virginians, and I think Bob Wise talked about that. West Virginia's families, our workers, our students, our small business people, our seniors, our veterans, people cast aside during the 1980s as dead weight, They are the ones that this bill helps the most. It asks for simple fairness, that those who have the most pay the most. Mr. President, we in West Virginia have never expected something for nothing. We've never feared hard work, and we've never tried to avoid paying our fair share of America's greatness. Our refusal to believe in the notion that self-interest was the American way has weathered the last 12 years. Now we have a president who shares our vision of America as a place where hard work and honesty and faith are rewarded by a government which treats us with fairness and justice. I was fortunate enough to be able to campaign with Bill Clinton last year. In fact, I'm lucky enough, Sharon and I, to have known the President and the First Lady for more than 15 years. It gives me comfort beyond what I can say to you through words, that he and that she is in the White House. Never in my memory has a president taken the two most difficult subjects in terms of legislation, reducing the budget deficit and reforming our health care system, and decided to do them both in the first session of Congress. Bill Clinton's doing that. I guess it's just easy enough for me to say, Mr. President, we are so proud that you are with us today. Our president with us. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Bill Clinton. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And hello, West Virginia. It's good to be back again. I want to thank my longtime friend, Senator Jay Rockefeller, for that wonderful introduction. And I want to thank Jay and Sharon for the work they have done for the people of West Virginia and the people of our country. I thank my friend Governor Caperton for being here, and Mayor Hall and Congressman Ray Hall and Congressman Wise. I'd like to thank Congressman Mullihan and your fine Senator Robert Byrd in their absence for their support of our program. I learned something about West Virginia that I already knew, but I saw it writ large in the last few days of the debate in the Congress, when we really had to make tough decisions, when people who talked tough and they talked about talking tough and they talked about talking tough finally had to act tough. West Virginia was there. And there was no wiggle or wobble or waffle or wonder. They were just there. They said, this is good for America. I know it's tough. I know we'll be criticized. I know there are people who will find fault, but we're going to do what is right for the people of West Virginia, right for the people of America. Sign us up. We're moving toward the future, and I appreciate that. I want to thank all the people who made this rally possible today. And I want to thank you and the people of this great country
who have endured hard times with hope, for helping us to break the gridlock in Washington. Now we can truly say change has come to America. Last week, Congress voted for the values of the American heartland, the values of the middle class, the values of the small business economy, the values of the small towns in the hills and hollows of West Virginia and my native state. They voted for work and family, for reducing our deficit and increasing our investment in our people and their futures, for jobs and growth, for those who work hard and play by the rules. After 20 long years of stagnant incomes, after 12 years of exploding deficits and reducing investment in our people, after 12 years of partisan gridlock and talking tough and acting soft, we reversed the direction. Now there is a new direction in America, opportunity for those who are responsible, no more something for nothing, a sense of community again. We're all in this together, and everyone must do his or her part. And again, I say to you, I am very grateful to the West Virginia delegation and to all the others who voted for this program, because they remembered amidst the withering fog of misinformation that surrounded it that, after all, none of us were sent to Washington to keep our job. We were sent to Washington to help you keep your job. And so we have taken, my fellow Americans, a first but major step to regain control of our economic destiny. We cut the deficit, we cut spending, we reward work, we ask those who can pay more to pay their fair share. We give the private sector incentives to grow jobs and invest in the future of our people. This is a good beginning. This plan will help our nation's economy to create 8 million new jobs over the next 4 years. Just last month, in calendar year 1993, we saw the 1 millionth job come into the American economy. That's about as many as were created in the previous 4 years. We are beginning. Is it enough? Of course it isn't. West Virginia still has the highest unemployment rate in the nation, although you may have the highest percentage of willing workers in the nation. If ever there was a place where people wanted to go to work, this is it. We cannot turn this around overnight, but we can never turn it around unless we show a willingness to change. And that is what last week was all about. In the last 12 years, we added $3 trillion to our national debt. That's right. From the beginning of our nation until 1980, we had $1 trillion national debt. By 1992, it was $4 trillion. We were running annual deficits in the range of $300 billion a year, over 5% of our annual income going to government deficits. When that happens, interest rates are too high, businesses cannot expand, and we cannot spend the money we need to spend to educate people, to create jobs, to deal with all the military cutbacks from California to Connecticut and help those people start a new life, to deal with the declines in mining and manufacturing in a state like West Virginia. It takes more money, and if you're up to your ears in debt, paying more every year on interest in the debt, more for the same health care with an out-of-control budget, it cannot be done. This plan cuts the deficit more than ever before by about $500 billion. There are $255 billion in specific spending cuts. No rhetoric, no hot air, no plugs, no we'll take about it later, specific cuts. And by the executive order that I have signed, we will lock both the new taxes and the spending cuts away in a deficit reduction trust fund, an idea so long championed by Congressman Bob Wise. And when the Congress returns in September with the help of Nick and Bob and Jay, I hope we will be able to persuade the entire Congress to create that trust fund in law. The rest of the deficit reduction comes largely from asking those who received most of the economic gains in the 1980s to pay their fair share. Every serious economic analysis shows that the top 1% of our earners got over half the economic benefits of the last decade and a tax cut as well. We ask them to pay more, not because we wish to punish success, but because in America, people who work hard deserve to be treated fairly, and we have to have a fair burden. %80 of these new revenues will come from those with incomes over $200,000 a year. Families with incomes of under $180,000, including 99% of all West Virginians, will not pay more in income taxes. For the first time in the history of this country, people who work 40 hours a week and have children in their homes will be lifted not by a government program, but by the tax system out of poverty. No bureaucracy, but a tax refund for people who do it. I have heard for years and years and years the politicians make pious speeches about how bad welfare is and how we ought to move people from welfare to work. But if people with low education who can only get low-wage jobs can stay on welfare and have health care for their kids and they don't have to come up with child care, is it any wonder that some do? Now we say, go to work and we'll spend tax money lifting you out of poverty because you work. That is what we ought to be doing. I want to say to all of you that this idea of the Earned Income Tax Credit being expanded to lifting the working poor and their children out of poverty was first championed by the National Commission on Children, chaired by J. Rockefeller. It was a good idea then, and it's a good idea now. Just think of it, 105,000 West Virginia working families being eligible to get some help to clothe their children and feed them and pay the medical bills and reinforce the values of work and family. It is one thing to talk about these things, my fellow Americans, and quite another to do it. This does it. There's another very important part of this plan I want to emphasize here today because of your high unemployment rate. For the last 12 years, most of the new jobs in America have been created by smaller businesses. And yet, very little attention has been given to what policies might help them. In fact, more and more laws may be passed which affect them adversely, whether in terms of more regulation or more taxes, without any thought to being given to how we can create more jobs. This is the most pro-small business economic plan adopted in many a year in Washington, D.C. Over 90% of the small businesses in this country will get a tax break under this plan if they invest more in their businesses. There is a 75% increase in the expensing provision in the tax code for small businesses to reinvest in their own businesses. The biggest incentive for people in 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 25 employee operations to reinvest in making their businesses more modern that I have seen in the last 12 or 15 years. It is a good provision. It will help everybody in Charleston, West Virginia, and Casper, Wyoming, and throughout this country. There is another provision in this code which enables people here in West Virginia to take a bigger chance to start new businesses. It says if you invest your money, however modest, in a new business that is capitalized up to $50 million, and you hold that investment for 5 years, you will get a 50% cut in the tax you owe from the gain you earn. Now that's how to get a tax cut. Invest and put people to work. That's when we should lower people's taxes, when they're putting the rest of America to work to move this economy forward. The last thing I want to say is that we do our best in this plan to invest in our people. I was attacked during the course of this budget debate because there was some new spending in this program.
and I plead guilty. There's a lot more spending cuts than spending, but there is some new spending. In every area, I challenge you to prove that it doesn't make sense. We spent some more money on the Head Start program to get poor children off to a good start in school. To help poor pregnant mothers while they are carrying their children to be well nourished so their children are born at normal birth weight in good condition, to save the taxpayers money, not to cost them money. To immunize our children against serious childhood diseases. You tell me why the United States of America has the third worst record of all the countries in the Western Hemisphere in immunizing children against diseases. You are all paying for it in higher medical bills for everybody else because we don't immunize the kids. It's a good investment. It pays off. And yes, we spent the money to do it. We spent a modest amount of money in this plan to provide more apprenticeship training programs for young people who don't go on to college but need a skill so they can earn a decent income. That will pay itself back, and you know it. And this plan makes it much, much easier for young people from working families to finance a college education. Lower interest college loans, better repayment terms. You can pay it back based on a percentage of your income, even if you borrow a lot of money, but you must pay the loan back now. It is a good change. It will educate more people. My fellow Americans, Friday night, we began to put our economic house in order. The specifics of the day may soon fade from our memories. Even the closeness of the vote will someday fade. But what will endure is that it was at this moment that we finally decided that change had to come, that we must finally face our problems, meet our challenges, build a better future, and stop just talking about it. Now, last week was more partisan than I had hoped, and as I say, I'm very deeply grateful to the West Virginia delegation and to many others who put the national interest ahead of their personal interest. There were some Democrats, because of the partisan nature of the debate, who came from districts where the people were not nearly so personally advantaged, who voted for it anyway, even though they put their own political futures on the line. I think of Congresswoman Marjorie Margolis-Mezvinsky from Pennsylvania, for example, from one of the most prosperous congressional districts in America, who voted yes and said this is in the national interest, and even people who pay higher income taxes will benefit if we have lower interest rates. If their interest payments go down more than their taxes go up, they'll still create more jobs, and America will go forward. There were people like that in this Congress who literally put their necks on the line. But I say to you, we have to do better. We have to do better. We cannot have every great issue of the day decided on the basis of partisanship. Scheduled around the next trip to New Hampshire for a primary still 4 years away. We have got to do some of these things together. This administration is devoted to change, but I don't care if it's called liberal or conservative or Democratic or Republican. I'm interested in tomorrow versus yesterday, in solving the real problems of the country. You can see what we can do when we work together. Just last week, with bipartisan support, the Family Leave Act became effective so that people now don't have to lose their jobs if they go home to take care of a sick child or a sick parent. We can do more of that. And I challenge the Congress when they return to pass with bipartisan support the National Service Act to give so many tens of thousands of our young people the chance to work off their college loans through serving their communities. Jay Rockefeller came here through national service. This is very, very important. It can open up a whole new area of solving our problems at the grassroots level, and we ought to do it without regard to partisanship. But finally, We have to deal with the greatest continuing threat to our economic security and to the personal security of most American families. An issue that your governor has dealt with, an issue that Senator Rockefeller has dealt with, an issue that your congressmen have dealt with, particularly as it affects the coal miners here, and that is the question of health care. Unless we reform the health care system of this country, we can never take the deficit down to zero. We can never assure that millions of working families will have their health insurance, even if someone in their family gets sick and they have to change jobs. We can never assure that a small business will be able to continue to afford to cover its employees and never have to choose between going broke or going without health insurance. We can stop, if we do it, the pattern of the last 12 years where in workplace after workplace after workplace, American working men and women had to give up their wage increases because of the increased cost of the health care package. We have got to do something to provide health security to all Americans in a way that is good for the private sector, good for our employers, and controls the cost without sacrificing quality. Can we do it? Of course we can. And there is more to do. The Vice President will have a report next month on reinventing our national government to further eliminate unnecessary government wasteful spending. We will have a plan to continue our efforts to end welfare as we know it. We will have a crime bill to put more police officers on the street, not only to catch criminals, but to prevent crime from happening. All these things must be done in a different way, and we need bipartisan support. We need to put an end to the partisan rancor and put the American people first again. My fellow Americans, when I got off at the airport, someone gave me this. A picture of President Kennedy when he was here 30 years ago in the rain, in this spot, in which he said, "The sun does not always shine in West Virginia, but the people always do." Well, today the sun shone and so did you, and I am very grateful. If it hadn't been for West Virginia, John Kennedy probably would not have been elected President of the United States. When he was here 30 years ago on his last visit, he reflected the eternal optimism, the unbending confidence that we could solve our problems, that is his enduring legacy and his enduring lesson to those of us who come behind. I tell you, throughout all the difficulties we have, the biggest problems we have are those that are inside our minds, the limitation on our vision, our will, and our heart, and our willingness to put aside the old divisions and work together to build a better America. There is nothing before us that cannot be cured if we have the willingness to open our ears, lower our voices, roll up our sleeves, and make our words speak through our deeds. That is what we must do from now on. Thank you for giving me a warm welcome. Change has come to America. Let's keep it going. God bless you all.
And there you have it, President Bill Clinton invoking the memory of John F. Kennedy as he speaks to the people of West Virginia from the same spot where President Kennedy spoke 30 years ago. Now the president is coming down off the podium in front of the Capitol and making his way to the crowds that are gathered here, taking a different exit from the way he came in this afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are several acknowledged wonders.
And being followed by the rest of the congressional delegation and the mayor of Charleston. And sound system now taking over here as the president continues to shake hands and make his way away from the state capitol building here after a rather lengthy speech, longer than we had expected. Of course, getting a little later start than we expected as well. On a beautiful summer, hot August afternoon here in the capital city of West Virginia. A rather festive occasion. Reminds you of a family outing or a picnic, a large family outing, or a holiday celebration. And there you have it. The president comes to Charleston. Our live coverage of the president's visit concluding now from the state capitol. We'll have more reaction to what the president had to say today, and among other things, reports on what else he did during his visit to Charleston on News 8 this evening at 6. For now, though, that concludes our live coverage. I'm Jack Kane reporting from the Capitol for WCHS TV News 8.
This has been a special report from WCHS TV News 8. Stay tuned to News 8 for further details as they're available. We now return you to your regular programming.
According to the Office of Management and Budget, their figures, both of those answer to the Democratic Party. That's not true. These reports were just published prior to the passage of the budget bill, and obviously a lot of people believe that, but they'll find out.
First of all, the guy's full of it. He's going to touch the deficit 3.5 years from now. We need it talked about now. The deficit's going to ruin us.
Protesters say there are many faults and deceptions in the bill passed by Congress, and they came to the Capitol today to point out those problems. Most people there were hoping to get a handshake or an autograph from President Clinton today. One of them has found himself thrust into the limelight since the Clinton administration went into office, not because of his politics, but because of his looks. Brad Harvey reports.
In January, we introduced you to Point Pleasant real estate agent and President Clinton twin, Michael Watson. Well, guess who was at the front of the line today to try to get an opportunity to shake hands with the president?
I came up last night. I got a pass from their advance team, so I could get up close. So we'll see how it goes today.
Now, do you think there's any possibility that some of the Secret Service guys might kind of get confused and accidentally whisk you away on Air Force One?
I don't think so, but they did talk to me last night and said for me to be careful up here today. So I said, well, I'll watch my back, you know.
Looking like the president gets you up close. A lot closer, obviously, than the media could get. After the speech, the president made his usual handshaking foray, and Watson's big moment came.
He kind of smiled and started laughing. You know, I can tell you, he glanced at me several times during the speech, and I waved at him, and he walked up, he started laughing as we were shaking hands, and I said, you know, you've changed my life. And he says, I can probably tell you that. But, it was a real experience. I loved it.
It's been a wild 6 months for Watson. He's been on local TV, in a national magazine, and recently taped a segment for the new David Letterman show. All the price of fame, thanks to nothing more than the gene pool. Brad Harvey, WCHS TV News 8, Charleston.
And still ahead on News 8, miners blocked the entrance to a Boone County mine, and a former...
Kansas today, his nemesis this year, Republican Senate Leader Bob Dole, was citing some of the very same issues with almost the very same message.
So now that we're over this one big, I think we sort of a watershed in confrontational politics, and we'll move on to a lot of things that'll be bipartisan, nonpartisan.
That kind of talk does not mean that a golden age of political peace is about to settle over Washington. It does mean that in some of the fights just ahead, different people will come out on different sides. Britt Hume, ABC News, the White House.
In a moment, the Pentagon weighing its options for Somalia. Later, an ABC News investigation, federal agents, and the case of the vanishing cocaine.